I'm David Lombardino, Editor-in-Chief of DLA Editors and Proofers, here to give you my tips on how to prepare a successful CV or resume. Now, of course, my experience comes from not only being an editor and proofreader, which I've been doing for many years now. I've been running DLA Editors and Proofers since 2008, but it also comes from my perspective as an editor-in-chief, the one who is responsible for reviewing applications from candidates who would like to work for me as an editor. And so when I talk to you about my advice for CVs and resumes, it is a little bit biased. It does really come from my perspective and what I like to see personally from an applicant who wants to work for me. And so the first item is to use a professional and easy to read formatting and layout for your CV. There's many templates out there, many ways to approach it. There isn't necessarily one that's better than another. What you want to look for is something that presents yourself in a clear, concise manner, that's easy to read, easy to get the information that you want the company or whoever you're applying to consider. And so when I see a CV or resume, I want to see that that there's been a lot of thought given into, can the CV or resume be received or be reviewed in an easy and clear manner? Is the layout easy to follow? Another part of that is that if I see that the CV or resume is formatted well, has a great layout from a professional point of view, I see that the candidate has taken the time to do so thoroughly, to prepare himself or herself thoroughly for applying for the position. And that gives me an indication of what kind of person that would be working for me as an editor. And so a lot of how you prepare your CV and resume is a first impression. It shows to your potential employer, wherever you're applying, hey, look, this is the kind of person I am. I'm thorough in my details. I'm thorough in the formatting and layout. It really sets the stage for your CV or resume, for your application as a whole to be given the consideration that you want it to. On the flip side, if you don't do that, when I see resumes or CVs that haven't been prepared in that manner, I think the person isn't giving me his or her best effort in preparing it, and if not, then why should I bother to read it? And so then the next step is that when you're writing your descriptions or what the information you choose to include in your CV or resume, remember, it's a choice, and you want to select the information that is going to be relevant to the position you are applying for. So we get CVs and resumes from people who want to apply for copywriting positions or who want to get into advertising. Now, I understand that when you're job searching and you are just trying to get your name out there and there's hundreds of positions you want to apply for because you don't have anything and you really have a broad interest, then you want to try to use a CV or resume that is kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. But let me tell you, that is not enjoyable to receive on my end. So if you want to really get noticed, if you really care about it, make it specifically oriented toward the position you're applying for. Now, if you really want to work at one particular company, of course, make sure that you know the details of the company, ins and outs of it, how it works, the kind of work you would be doing for them, and make sure that you organize your descriptions and your CV or resume toward that. Now, it may be exhaustive to have to prepare a different CV or resume for every different company you're applying for, and you don't necessarily have to do that. But if there's a company that's really important to you, the way you show that it's really important to you and the way you really put yourself forward as an applicant is by tailoring your CV or resume to that specific company. If not the specific company, then at least the job type or job title. If you're applying to be an editor, then make sure all of your descriptions, every detail in your resume or CV is oriented toward your application for the editor position. Do not include statements like a summary at the beginning where you want to find a position as a copywriter. That's not going to come across as if you know what you're talking about. You're not going to come across as an effective or attractive candidate. And so then moving on to your descriptions, you use a similar concept, which is that I talked about earlier with the formatting and layout. You want your descriptions to be concise, thorough, well organized, easy to read, and to get your points across. And of course, you want to organize them in such a way that gets the information as easily and effectively as possible to the person who's going to be reviewing it. Now, with regard to hobbies and interests, this is a question that comes up quite a bit. Do you include hobbies and interests? And if so, what do you include for hobbies and interests? Personally, my recommendation is always include at least 2, maybe 3 hobbies or interests in your CV or resume. And the reason is this, because anybody can have the experience that you've had. In other words, there are other people working at the same jobs that you've worked at. And so what separates you in your CV or resume from that other person? And of course, we've talked about the formatting and layout. We've talked about how you write your descriptions. Those certainly will set you apart. But hobbies and interests is your way to communicate something more complete about who you are in terms of your personality, your character, etc. And so that should be the guiding principle you use for your hobbies and interests, which is think of them as potential conversation starters in an interview. So make them specific and interesting. Don't just tell me that you like to read. Tell me that you like to read 19th century Russian literature, for example. Or don't tell me that you just like to travel. Tell me specific places where you like to travel. Or not just that you like to cook. Tell me specific dishes you like to cook. For example, I like to cook the dishes that my mom learned from her parents growing up in India. Something along those lines where, okay, there's something there that I can pick up on. If I'm going to interview you, I can ask you about that and have an interesting place to start with the conversation. Finally, the question of references and whether to include them in the CV or resume. I say you either include them or don't include them, but don't say that references exist upon request, because it's going to be tacit. We all know that the references exist because you've worked places before or you have experiences that you've put on your CV. So I believe that if I want to contact somebody, I'm going to ask you for a reference and you're going to give it to me. If you prefer to go ahead and provide it in the CV or resume, that's fine. I generally don't care because I generally assume that if I'm interested enough, I'm going to ask you for the reference. You'll provide it to me. I'll call that person or contact that person and find out the information I want to know. But don't tell me that they exist and then not provide it. That's kind of like you're trying to show that you have information that you're intentionally not providing, and that kind of sets the wrong tone. It sets the wrong tone because you want to come across as somebody who is forthright and honest. I don't want to be looking at an application in which I believe that the person or the applicant is intentionally concealing information that could be important in my decision-making process. I hope that helps. We'd love to help you with your CV or resume, and we offer a full range of services to do so, from proofreading to editing and feedback. Come see what we have to offer at www.dlaeditors.com.